Good afternoon, guys. Before we get going, I think I'd be remiss without saying congratulations to both Coach Mitty and Coach Tang. I know that the season was not necessarily just a complete linear, all greatness, but both of them created great memories, had some great wins, and excited about both those coaches in the future. And also really cool for Coach Hughes, to be number one in the Big 12. So just wanted to congratulate them on great seasons, and also wish continued best to Coach Hughes, and give you guys a little bit of an update on where we're at in spring ball. Finished practice 6 yesterday, and it's interesting as we have made some changes to the offense of where you do see some of those growth pains. Where I say growth pains is where it's there's been some ups and there's been some downs. And with the youth of our football team, I think that's to be expected, and continuing to reiterate the message to the guys that those down times can be very beneficial if we handle them the right way, if we grow from them, if we learn from them. And just really excited about where this progression is going. And it's not all rainbows and unicorns at all times. But I'm very pleased with where we're at. So with that, just very briefly, I'll open up to you guys.
Conor, when you say progression, can you kind of expound upon the progress you've been able to make so far?
Yeah, when you look at progression, is we have to look and still recognize that we do have some youth at particular positions. And it's with that youth coupled with some new aspects to our offense, you're going to see some real highs, and then you're going to see some, what the heck are we doing? But that's the purpose of spring ball, and that's the purpose of practice. And without those, what the heck are we doing? Are we going to truly find out about ourselves? So when you look at that progression, its growth is never linear. There's going to be some positives, and then maybe we plateau, and then maybe take a little bit of a step back, and then you see a little bit more growth. And that's what that graph is going to continue to look like. And with the youth, it's ensuring that when we do have a little bit of those lows, that you don't get too frustrated and you continue to move forward. And right now, that's what I see us doing. So that's what is exciting about this progression.
Sticking with that same vein of progress, could you speak to the quarterback position and just what you've seen there? Yeah,
it's what you'd expect. It's a dynamic, competitive athlete with Avery, who is completely invested. I've seen him probably more over the last 2 months than I've seen my wife. And it just goes to show his desire to continue to grow, his desire to continue to learn. One person who I've been really pleased with his growth over the past 2 months and how we've challenged him is Jacob Knuth. And he made a couple decisions the other day, a couple throws the other day that offensively are the things that we recruited a few years ago. So just really, really excited about those two at the quarterback position.
You've had a lot of continuity at the center position. Can you talk about the progression moving forward with that, the components available to you?
Yeah, right now at the center position, we have obviously Sam Hecht, who I'm very, very excited about. And we've also been working Hadley Panzer at center, who's done a phenomenal job. And we also have a young walk-on in Michael Capria, who just his progression, his physicality, and what I've been challenging with his leadership has been phenomenal. One of our, I still call him a high school senior, and Kyle Rockers is progressing very, very fast. He's an extremely smart football player. He's learning how we practice. He's learning the speed of the college game, and how things can quickly change. But for a young man after 6 practices who's never played center before in his career, I'm very pleased. And to that point, I can't tell you the last time that I had a center play for our old line, whether that's at Kansas State or a previous stop, who was a center. So his progression is going along very well as well.
What's your outlook on the running back room? Obviously, DJ returns for you and carries a lot of experience with him, but beyond that, and what things look like.
Yeah, let me talk real quick on DJ. I think I saw briefly some of the quotes that Coach Malone said the other day. His development from, and you can go back to a year ago, you can go back to maybe really targeting a Central Florida game, and his progression throughout the season to the type of player that you guys saw in the bowl game this past year is impressive, to say the least. But I just could not be more excited about the type of young man and the type of player he is. I know one of the things Coach Anderson is doing a great job with, and what we're challenging him to do is in some of his route running. And having seen some of that over the course of the first 6 practices gets very exciting. In behind him, when you look at Joe, and he's got ability. He's got quite a bit of ability. And he's got that it factor because he is a competitor. He's still young, so there's still going to be some mistakes. But you look at his toughness and how he's continuing to come along. I just couldn't be. I'm very, very excited about what his future is, and what his involvement is this upcoming fall is going to really depend on what transpires between now and next season. And there's Jimmy White and Evan Cantu, and both those guys have both flashed with some real positives. So I'm excited where that room is. Obviously, young Rice, Damon Rice, is he's still learning. He's swimming, and it's a little bit of encouraging him to keep soaking up that water fountain that fire hose that is spraying him in the face, and just take a little bit at a time every day.
Conor, it struck me as interesting with DJ, given all he's already accomplished, he might be a guy that you would maybe sit during the spring or not give the ball to a whole lot, let some other guys take a chance. But in practice, at least when we've watched, he's been handling a lot. What's the thought process there? Is he just the type of player who can handle that, or why let him go full rein?
Yeah, and that's a discussion probably better with Coach Kleiman. I will tell you this, that we are managing his reps, and I know that you guys are typically there at the beginning of practice. And I'm going to kind of comment on 2 things relative to that. I think DJ would admit that there are still some things that he needs to continue to work, although he is what I would consider to be one of the best in the country at that particular position. And also with that as well is we look back at this past year, and I know I visited on it before, but we are 1-4 in 1-score games. And that's one thing that really sticks with me. It's one thing that I've mentioned to the offense. It's something I've talked to the offensive line about. And if you look at the differences between this past year and maybe in 2022 in those 1-score games, I don't know the exact statistics in 2022. It's about having that grit. It's about having that that scrappiness that I think is a big positive for Kansas State. And for DJ to go out and practice every single day, it's not only him working his craft, but there's a lot of eyes on him. And I'm not talking about necessarily you guys in the media. I'm talking about guys in our locker room, and the importance that it is to go out and practice, and the importance that it is to go out and compete, the importance that even though he is that type of player, and if you have any football sense at all, you know that for our guys, but he's still going out there and doing that is something that's pretty important. But along with that, we are ensuring that throughout a course of practice that his reps are minimized.
When you're spending all this time with Avery, What are you guys talking about? Like, what's the main thing he's harping
Well,
on
I know
with?
he spent quite a bit of time with Coach Wells, and it's talking about offense. It's talking about, he'll come up and visit with Coach Kleiman about defensive perspective. He'll come up and talk about protections. He'll come up and talk about some of the new things that we're doing. What are the reads? What are the things that he's seeing? It's from a technique. It's from schematics to what we're doing, and then it's from analyzing the defense. It's the guy's a football junkie. He really is, and we all know what kind of athlete. We all know what type of young man he is, but he loves the game of football. He really does, and he loves learning so much about the game of football, and you're seeing it. And he's a quick learner, so I really commend him on his commitment to what we constitute as the unrequired.
One more for you. What's your stance on continuing to signal the play calls in next year like you always have, or maybe going to a helmet system if that's allowed?
Yeah, we're navigating that process right now. I know Coach Wells and myself have talked to a few NFL coaches, and what we're looking at are what are some of the issues that they have encountered. The guys that we've targeted have both called offense at the college level and at the NFL level, and we are looking at what is going to be the best method for us. We will use the component of the the radio communication with a quarterback. I can't say that we have the exact plan as it stands right now after 6 practices. I believe we've used it probably coming back after spring break 4 times, and we'll see how that continues to evolve. Our plan is that about 98% of our procedural operations from sideline to the field is going to be in place by the end of spring football.
How have some of the younger offensive linemen handled kind of the leadership void left by all those seniors that graduated?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because we did have such phenomenal leadership, and it's a process. It's allowing them to have their own personalities kind of take over that room. It's one of the things that's been most exciting to see, and you're seeing it with Andrew Leingang. You're seeing Carver Willis step up. You're seeing Hadley Panzer is a phenomenal leader for us. You're seeing Taylor Poitier, who's been around here quite some time. He's kind of the old man of the group now. He's inherited a little bit of that. But it's about them continuing to be themselves and not trying to be Noah Johnson, not trying to be Hayden Gillum or Katori Leviston. It's about them developing their own leadership skills, but at the same time becoming a leader who's going to impact somebody else. Not getting into this, well, I'm just going to lead by example. And we've had that conversation, well, I'm going to lead by example. That kind of comes off, quite honestly, as a little bit selfish, because I'm going to lead by example. Well, then, hell, you're only looking at yourself. But how can you positively impact somebody? And is that in a way of challenging them? Is that in a way of putting your arm around them? Is that in a way of saying, for whatever reason, you can't figure this out, me and you are going to go sit down and have a 30-minute extra meeting? Those are the things that we're beginning to see. And where we're at as an offensive line, as far as collective as a room, I'm very much enjoying. And it's not that you're coaching effort, you're not coaching finish. It's about really fine-tuning those things, and it's a testament to the young men in that room, and really it's a testament to the guys that have come before them as well.
And then how have you seen the young group of wide receivers that came in like last season, redshirted, kind of take that next step in spring practice?
And that's one of those that you're seeing some of those highs and lows, and in part because of the different pictures that they're seeing when you get a 5-safety defense, and then you throw in some changes to the offense. It's about them continuing to play fast. There's been flashes of their ability to make plays, their ability to run routes, their ability to get in and show the toughness and play fast. And then there's some other times where it's going to be that repetition that some of those youth, some of those younger guys are going to need. And part of it is there's some youth who are working with that first group. And that's where maybe some of the frustration, a young guy, okay, that picture, and then that picture changed post-snap, and how are they reacting? They're kind of, you go through this process of learning without getting into it too much, but, first you don't know what you don't know, and then you kind of figure it out, what you don't know, and then you get into the next process of, okay, well, now I do know what I don't know, and I know what I got to change, and you're thinking as opposed to reacting. And that's a little bit of the stage sometimes that you see with those young guys as they're getting into that next installation period. And that's how I look a lot at youth is, okay, they went through it this past fall. All right, now they're going through it this spring again with some change. All right, now we're getting into that phase where, all right, man, it's a little bit of paralysis by analysis where you can see them out on the field thinking, and what we need to get them to do is to react, and that's not mutually exclusive to the to the wide receiver room. That's collectively in the game of football. So that's where these next 9 practices are going to be so important. That's where, when they get into captain's practices this summer, they're going to be so important, and then getting into fall camp next year.
As the new leader of the offense, when someone watches your side of the ball, what do you want their main takeaway to be?
The biggest thing that I've communicated to our guys is control the controllables. So when they watch our offense, what I want them to see is a disciplined team. I want to see a team that really plays their ass off and plays their ass off for one another. I want to see a team that executes at an extremely high level. I want to see a team that's going to be extremely physical and physical at all points of attack. And then ultimately we want to be explosive and efficient. And if you say that's kind of what you would say about our offense that we're going to have without getting into much of the schematics, if you say those things about our offense, I know that we're going to win a whole hell of a lot of ball games.
As the offensive coach, who are some defensive players this spring that have been kind of a pain in the butt for you guys?
Gosh, where do you start? it's Toby in his transition is probably one that you just see him continuing to grow and get better every single day. You can go down the list of probably the ones who are pretty. Siegel's just a phenomenal football player. You get to Jacob Parrish, and he's really good. And another old guy, Stufflebean. We were joking yesterday with one of our tackles. I said that kid's a lot stronger than he looks now. The old Bean, he's got he's got a little bit heavier hands than you'd anticipate. And I'm probably focusing a little bit more on guys within that core. But Damian is just an impressive football player. He really is. Big Dame does a phenomenal job on it. You see Austin Romaine continuing to get better. Our young defensive ends, I'm sitting there going, gosh, there's some guys who are flashing, and just how they complement one another from a physicality, from a quickness standpoint. All 3 of those guys are just doing a great job, and you can kind of see some of those guys flashing from time to time, but there's some youth on that side of the ball right now as well, and I'm sure that they'd say the same things of some ups and downs as it goes through it. And I'm kind of putting me on the spot with that, but I'm sure I'm leaving somebody out, but I know I'm really excited about that side of the football as well.
You're into the heart of spring practice now. What has Matt Wells brought to your side of the ball?
Well, he's brought a ton of ideas and a ton of information of me seeing it and us seeing it from a different quarterback perspective. So a lot of the nuance things that we are doing that may be different are some things that Coach Wells has brought to the table. One of the things I had a conversation with in leaning on his experience from a quarterback's coach, from a coordinator to a head coach, is continuing to have a little bit different of a perspective, maybe that that 1,000-yard perspective of the whole thing, and challenging myself and challenging other coaches to maybe see some things, some different ways that we've been kind of stuck in our own way, and challenge us to get out of our comfort zone. So just been a tremendous amount of support to me as I take on this new role as well, from seeing it this way to encouragement to saying, okay, hey, maybe we need to take a little bit different perspective, because I'm learning and growing as well. And I'll be the first to admit that as a leader, is that, it isn't just wide receivers or O-line or running backs who've made some mistakes over the past six practices. I too have made some mistakes. So getting his perspective has just been, you can't measure how valuable that's been.
Ben Sinnott was so important to this offense for, and you guys started to design stuff for Ben. Is that something, from what we've seen, it looks like something the tight ends will continue, but how important is that for the offense?
It's extremely important to the offense, and as we get in and recruit tight ends and talk about that particular position, to me it's one of the things that makes our offense unique across the landscape of college football, is the versatility that we can do with the tight ends. And I appreciate you bringing them up, because Ben Sinnott, I think I read something the other day that said, gosh, he may be the number 2 tight end in this year's draft. Whether or not that's true, I know he was a hell of a player for us here at Kansas State. And as we get into the spring, we do have some youth at that tight end position. And Will Swanson has done a phenomenal job, and seeing him continue to grow and take over some leadership responsibilities. I think you guys know how I feel about Garrett Oakley. I've talked so much about that. But another young man who's really in just probably maybe the convenience of the timing, I thought he had a great practice yesterday, was Braden Lofton. And you look at Braden and his progression and the challenge for him, and then our 2 pups in that room as well, and their continued growth. And you're seeing those guys begin to play a little bit faster. That tight end position in our offense is not an easy position to learn. In fact, I've coached that position in this offense if you go back to 2013. And since that time, I've often said that is the most challenging position next to quarterback for us to know. But that versatility with that position that we do plan on continuing to evolve within our offense is what does make us unique.
Finally, what do you look for when seeking a player that might be a center for your offense?
A center? Yeah. Okay. First, it has to be somebody who's smart. The center position, because you're not necessarily out on the edge, you may not need some of the length. And when I talk about length, we often think about height, but I look at the arm length. You need to have somebody who has the ability to communicate, because our communication from an offensive line standpoint starts from the inside and works back out, is how we handle that. You have to have somebody who's got some grit and some physicality in them. And then with our offense and how we want to do some things with the athleticism of the offensive line and pulling, they have to be athletic. They have to have the ability to play out in space. If they can't play out in space, it very much limits the things that we can do offensively. And right now, we're not looking to create limitations. We're looking to create, expand upon where we've been thus far.
Yeah, the center position being an example. I know in the spring you work a lot on versatility with the offensive linemen, and also what's the balance though now when you're breaking in some new guys and trying to get continuity at that position and at the set positions, and also trying to find where people fit best and get work for the younger guys?
Yeah, and that's kind of the matrix it is as an offensive line coach, especially when your numbers aren't as heavier in spring ball. So, yeah, I want to get continuity, but I also want to get challenge. And what I mean by challenge is, okay, maybe Bubba feels real good playing next to Carver Willis. Well, how does Bubba feel playing next to John Pastore? And you know, and there's a prime example with Andrew Linegang. Here's a guy who, unbeknownst maybe to you guys, he's played every single position across the offensive line. And there is that balance of finding that continuity from an offensive line coach. But the way that I want to teach, guys, is I don't want to teach, hey, the left tackle on this play is doing this assignment. Let's teach it conceptually. And when they do play multiple positions, it is going to add value to our offense, which adds value to this football team. It's going to give them more opportunity. I tell recruits this all the time. You are going to play multiple positions because you need to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and it is pretty uncomfortable. You know, there's sometimes a guy goes down and okay, I've been working all my Indy. I've been working the first 5 practices on the left side. You need to get your rear end over to the right side. Okay, well, let's figure out how you're going to handle that. And then ultimately it gives me a good measurement of conceptually with what we are doing offensively, how well do they understand the scheme? Okay, not what is the left tackle doing, but what are we doing as an offense? And then the balance becomes getting into that continuity. So when you have limited numbers in the spring, continuity is not, I'll be honest with you guys, and maybe people will say I'm terrible for this, is not at the priority of that. It is to your point of figuring out where the best guys are going to fit. Because at the end of the day, I tell them all, my job is to find the best 5 out there. Hopefully we can get to 7 like I think we had a year ago. I'd love to get to 8, okay, where we can rotate some guys in there. That's a philosophy for us. You know, we lose these offensive linemen from a year ago and everybody thinks the sky's falling and what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, that's what we've been preparing for. And I have to remind some people sometimes in 2021, okay, we lost a pretty damn good center in Noah Johnson. We lost 2 really experienced guards in Josh Rivas and Ben Adler. And then, you know, we had the ability to make some adjustments with the Cooper Beebes of what particular position might fit them best. But that's what we have to continue to do to push this program forward. And I apologize about getting long-winded on this. And then ultimately be what Coach Kleiman continues to say, which is not a great football team that goes 10-2 or 9-3, and then boom, I lay an egg and I'm 4-7 or 4-8, excuse me, or 5-7. Okay, but we're looking to create consistency within a great football program, and we're not going to do that by just saying, "Hey, man, you get to play one position." You know, you pick the O-line, or let's be honest, most of the time the O-line picked you. Okay, so you better start embracing it.
I just had a couple real fast. I was curious about what your thoughts would be, how much Drew Little can help you as he comes back. And then secondarily, I was wondering about Dante Cephas and how he's just kind of on a day-to-day. I know he's probably swimming a little bit too, but do you feel like he can help you down the road?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. Obviously, we wouldn't have brought him in if we didn't think that they're going to be a huge impact. And when the opportunity presented itself with Coach Little, who is not only a dear friend of mine, but, you know, Coach Klein is an alumni of this place, and having an alumni on staff, I think, and Coach Kleiman thinks is very beneficial, because at how much I love this place, at how much, you know, man, what you sacrifice, I didn't sacrifice nearly as much or anything as much as the players that have, you know, have kind of bled out on that football field. And Drew is one of those guys. And if I didn't trust him, not only in those components, but in our time together and the opportunity presented itself, that the timing was right, he's going to be a huge asset. He's going to be a huge asset for our offense. He's going to be a huge asset for our football program, for this university, and most definitely for me as we continue to work this progression of an offensive line coach and coordinator position. When you look at Dante Cephas, he's a guy that, you know, we had conversations going back a year ago prior to him going to Penn State when Coach Middleton was here. And yes, we do believe that he brings a dynamic element to this offense. Is he one of these guys who he too is going through some of those growth? Yeah, that's part of it. And he's a mature guy that once I know everything is clicking, he has great ability to help this football team out, not only in how explosive he is, but the kid he's physical. That kid is not scared. I know that, and he's got tremendous hands. So I'm really excited about his progression and his involvement as we continue moving forward and seeing how his role on this offense continues to evolve.